Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Speckle Park Commercial Register webinar. We'll kick off so that we don't keep anyone waiting. We will still have a few popping in throughout. Just to introduce myself, I'm Naomi Hobson. I'm the chair of the Breed Development Committee with Speckle Park International and previously the technical committee. I'd like to start the day by just acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and waters on which we're meeting today. For myself, that's the Gamilaroi people, and to pass that on to the traditional owners of the lands that you're all on today as well. For housekeeping, you'll notice that you're all muted as you come in. That's just to avoid any background noise. As we go through the webinar, you're welcome to pop questions into the chat box. You can get it if you just move your mouse down to the bottom, you'll see a little pop-up come up and there's a little box that says chat. If you open that, you can put your questions into that as we go through, and you can also type your questions into that at the end when we get to questions. We'll also have the option that if you would like to ask your question, if you just hit the reaction button, there's an option there to raise your hand, and then we'll work through those that would like to ask a question as well. So if you're more comfortable typing a question, you're welcome to. If you'd like to ask a question yourself, you'll have that opportunity to do that as well. I just want to start by thanking the committee that's been involved with this, both in the previous technical committee and now the redevelopment committee. It's been a project that we've been working on for a number of years now. And after the implementation of the single step genomics and the breed indexes, this was the natural next step for our breed. And so in the same way that we approached those other two projects, we really took time to make sure that we were consulting with industry and working out exactly how we could implement the commercial analysis in the best way possible for the results that we needed, with the key objectives being to provide the performance data that industry needs to prove the value proposition for Speckle Park and to grow the demand for purebred registered Speckle Park bulls. So it was as simple as trying to achieve those two objectives, which with the work from the people you can see on the screen, so from Phil, Luke, Nick, Samantha and Ron, I think we've been able to hopefully achieve that. But please leave today with all of your questions answered. Don't leave anything that you're not sure about. And I'll pass over to Tim Weller now, who helped both in his previous role on the technical committee with the development of this work and now as a member of the board as well. So I'll hand over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Naomi, and welcome everybody here. I can't see anyone's faces from here, but thank you all for coming along. This is obviously a very significant step within Speckle Park International and our progression over the years. So just want to take this time to work through this and make sure everyone understands what we're trying to do and the outcomes and the purposes for the whole Speckle Park Commercial Register. And I think the most obvious quote that I could ever think of to work through why we're progressing through this is the simple quote there on the screen: without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So I guess that's the nuts and bolts behind what we're working through here. As Naomi mentioned there, a big thank you to the Breed Development and previous tech committee and the many different people over the years that have been involved. That's been going for 7 years, Naomi reminded us the other day. So Naomi and myself are two of the founding members with some other people that are on this call here today. But to work through this, some of these slides I presented at the AGM back in November in Melbourne. There's a few changes to some of them and we'll work through it. But I think the way to really walk through this is we're all here because we have a passion for the Speckle Park breed. We all have different markets and different endpoints in mind, but if we work through this, I think we all agree some of the key things that set Speckle Park ahead of everybody else is sustainable production. And if you think of the current beef industry and the whole globe, I guess, the way things are working through carbon footprint and all those things, sustainable production is a key point. Early maturing, early finishing, a breed that is able to finish off grain and grass, efficient production. There's lots of talk of feed intake and efficiency, and they're obviously a moderate mature cow weight breed. Fertility's always been a strong point within the breed, but then eating quality are the points that's really really going to set us apart. And I guess having a conversation with someone yesterday around the attributes of some other key breeds, and we have no intention of trying to be one of those two breeds. Speckle Park are a breed of their own, and things like the tenderness, the flavour, the eating quality, and things one of our first ever things we did with the tech committee was looking at the fat melting point, and Jad's continued similar sort of research in recent years, proving differences in omega-3 fatty acids and so forth. So we have something, we know a little bit, we don't know the full answer, but there is definite reasons why Speckle Park are different to other breeds and why we have a unique position within the marketplace. Mid to late last year, we worked through a member survey and asked a few questions, and there's a series of these questions and some short responses I'll go through here to work through what we learnt and where that fits within the commercial register. So one question was, would you utilise the commercial register if available? 40% were yes, 36 wanted to know more about that. Validation of what makes Speckle Park meat tender, 83% were agreeing in that. Development of genetic tool to measure tenderness, eating quality of Speckle Park animals, 84%. So all of these questions back up those first couple of points I spoke about. Development of structural EBVs, 71% were in favour of that. Development of calving ease, EBVs, because we only have gestation length and birth weight at the moment, 76. Development of frame score EBVs, 70%. Development of net feed intake EBVs, 60% were keen on that. Development of docility, 79%. Development of tenderness is 78%. And I guess not to confuse tenderness EBV with the Neogen tenderness scores that we now have available to us. And then development of a genetic tool to identify GH carriers is something we're still strongly working on. And within the Speckle Park breed, we've had a bit of a timeline of working through things. 2018 was the first time we had EBVs released. So we're only 8 years later down the track here. So we're only a very new breed. We're only working through this, and there's been a lot of effort from a few key breeders that have built a lot of the backbones to the current EBV data set that we have. A key point that I don't think anyone really realised, and whoever was the brainchild on the board at the time that created put Speckle Park in a very unique position of having all calves requiring a DNA to have parentage and myostatin coat, colour and horn, having those things as part of our breed, but having that DNA profile on all our animals is something that sets our breed uniquely apart to every other breed, which is why very soon after in 2003, we were able to implement the single-step genomic EBVs, which has been a massive advancement. And then a year later, we included the breed indexes, which will be a part of breed development's schedule this year to work through those breed indexes. Are we on the right track? Are they achieving what we want them to do? So we're only a new breed. We have a reasonable amount of EBV data from breed plan within our evaluation. And I wanted to get a bit of a handle here to try and explain where we sit in comparison to some other breeds. So I've picked two very well-known Hereford and Angus herds that are well-known to everybody, but both 5-star or equivalent breed plan herds, and looked at just the 400-day weight and where they would sit. So the Waroona Hereford herd, 84% accuracy for an animal there on 400-day weight. Ranelagh Angus, 86%. So we're talking two of the absolute most extreme performance recording herds in the industry. And I picked Minamara as a Speckle Park example. They've been one of the longest serving breed plan members. Their average ewe male is at 72% accuracy. And then Limousin and Simmental, two breeds that have been in the country a lot longer than Speckle Park, and picked two herds there. and their ewe animals are at 65% and 69%. So they're a bit behind where we are. And Speckle Park have got 125 animals that are over 85% accuracy on 400-day weight. So for the size of Speckle Park, where we've been and how long we've been here, we are in reasonable shape. Are we in perfect shape? You can never get 100% accuracy. But if we could move closer to that 80% accuracy, I think would be a great goal for us to work towards. Part of that comes from breed plan members, and that really comes from breed plan members in that 3.5 and upwards completeness of performance scale. And I've broken down there where our members sit, and on the right of the screen you can see the count of herds that fit within each of those categories. And to give you a bit of an example, a herd that's in that 3 completeness of performance, which we can see there's 40 herds, and that makes up about 1,500 animals in that. And a herd at 3 for completeness of performance is doing a registration, obviously, is doing a birth weight with genomics and probably nothing else, with the occasional weight or so forth in there. When you get to your 4.5 to 5 and even 4, you're consistently doing weight and scan data, IMFs, birth weights, and so forth. The exciting thing is at the moment, there's 15 herds that are 4.5 or better in completeness of performance within Speckle Park breed, and 4 of those are actually board members on the board currently at the moment. The concerning thing about that screen that we can see there, here is 2/3 of our female inventory reside in non-breed plan member herds. So that's something we need to address. Are we going to change that? Is that unique to Speckle Park? No, it's not. All other breeds are in a similar situation of those numbers. Change the breed name is very similar to what we see across all other breeds. So I guess it is a case of relying on those that are committed to making sure breed plan data goes in to create accuracy, to create repeatability for bull customers at the end of the day. There's a bit going on in this slide. If we look at the pink lines there to start with, the light pink is females for 400 days. The dark pink is scan data for 400 days. And it's the percentage of animals that have breed plan data recorded across the years. And as you can see, pre-2018, we did not have EBVs. So the data was up and down and a little bit all over the place. But as we released data, released EBVs, there was some historical information obviously came through from 2016 born animals. We increased a little bit through to 2020, 21. And keeping in mind, I have purposely stopped this slide at 2023 because to have scan data, you need to be 350, 550 day range to do scan data. So obviously those animals aren't old enough if they're born much later than 2023 at the moment. So, but the concerning piece there is we had an increase, we've plateaued, and we've started to slide backwards a little bit. So how accurate are our EBVs? 80% of calves have a recorded birth weight. So everyone's pretty good at doing that. And now the accuracy of our gestation length and birth weight is very good, but only 35% of those animals continue on to have a 200, 30% down to 400-day weights, and then considerably lower again at 28% for 600-day weights. 32%, as the previous slide showed, for their scan data. 30% of males end up with scrotal EBVs. But one of the concerning points here at the bottom is, the 2 points at the bottom is less than 10% have mature cow weight data and docility data, which are 2 points we said were 2 reasons why Speckle Parks have a significant advantage against other breeds, but we have very little data to back that up. The bottom line there, less than 1% net feed intake, that is understandable. Net feed intake is something that's very new to the industry. There's not a lot of places around the industry you can create that data, but I'm only going to guess. There's potentially less than 10 places in Australia that you can do net feed intake research to go into EBVs. 3 of those are Speckle Park members. So we do have a significant advantage we can make the most of there. So to recap on the first slide, why are Speckle Park ahead of the rest? Sustainable production. We don't have a lot of data there. I didn't put some slides up there on fertility. We have a little bit of fertility data. We don't have great fertility data. We have a little bit of docility data. We don't have a lot of eat equality data. So how do we do that amongst our current framework? And I think that's a little bit of a struggle. So we need to look sideways and work out what else we can come up with. So part of that reason is why we've decided to create the 2 different registers. SPPR for an acronym, Speckle Park Purebred Register. 110%, absolutely nothing changes with the makeup of the purebred register. It stays 100% how it is. There is not one rule that has changed. There is no plan for any rule for animals within the Speckle Park Purebred Register to change. We have done an update to the rules and regulations to allow for the Speckle Park Commercial Register, because that allows different points to come in that need to be a part of that. And one main point of that is we needed a definition of what a purebred animal is and what a commercial animal is. Now, to say a purebred animal is an animal that is on the purebred register isn't always 100%, because we have animals that are red. They're unavailable to be registered in the purebred register, but they are still 100% pure animals, horned animals that 100% parent verified back to the original Speckle Park Purebred Register are animals that are considered purebred. Commercial is as simple as Speckle Park infused animals with known Speckle Park purebred content. So they have some form of purebred registered Speckle Park within their parentage, but they do not trace on both sides of their pedigree back to original animals from Canada, obviously, that make them available to be called purebred. So a commercial register, why should we do that? What's the reason? And I guess those first few slides I've gone through is to create the picture of why we need to improve accuracies in Speckle Park EBVs. Having a commercial register allows us to create reference points to create a larger genomic population. It allows studs like many of us that have stud and commercial animals and have commercial animals by purebred bulls. It allows us to create larger contemporary groups within those animals. It allows for progeny of stud bulls in commercial herds to have data come back into EBVs. One main thing is carcass data, kill sheet data on the hook, MSA recorded data. It is very unlikely that anyone is going to kill a complete contemporary group of stud animals in one day at the same processor. So we never really have access to do that. Wagyu as a breed does have that access. It's a totally different setup. So for us to have access to that, having a commercial register, having clients with registered bulls, creating commercial cattle and killing all those on one day gives us that opportunity to bring those back through. One thing that the Breed Development Committee spent a lot of time on and a lot of deliberation on was maintaining the integrity on the SPPR, the Purebred Register. So just wanted to highlight there again, there are no rule changes in that. And the progeny, and we're trying to promote the fact that progeny from stud bulls in commercial herds is a part of the commercial register. So having a commercial register also allows for different research opportunities, bringing data back through. We have ability to create pedigrees, EBV analysis and so forth from carcass data trials, meat eating quality trials. We can link that all back through. And we also have the ability there for some flexibility to members for females that can go, that are no longer considered stud quality animals. If they want to have them as a commercial animal and still have steers and females from those within their commercial herd, they can still work through there that way. A few more points on why a commercial register. Today's beef industry is changing. It's data driven. There is, as we're all fully aware right at the moment, fuel prices, fertilizer prices, the margin is decreasing by the day. We need every piece of evidence, have every piece of opportunity to create the extra 1% as we can within our business. So our commercial cattlemen today, they need data, they want reliability, they want repeatability of that data. One thing, as you start talking within supply chains and stories with processors, stories that chefs can tell their customers, they want data traceability. They want to know where their meat comes from. So the commercial register is designed with different points in mind that we can create that for an end use customer at the end of the day. It also gives us the ability for proof of purchase, pedigree, breed composition of the animals they're purchasing. And the added bonus is improved accuracy back to the purebred bull. It gives us access to do research trials to create new traits. And also one point that's been talked about within the board for many years, I know, is an SPI ear tag opportunity. Something like that, the commercial register is perfectly created for to be able to manage and mandate that. Obviously, for a commercial register to be successful, it needs rules. So a sire or a dam of a commercial animal must be a registered purebred Speckle Park animal. One or the other. It could be a dam that you're no longer working with as a commercial animal and you have a calf by an Angus bull, or you've got a purebred Speckle Park bull over an Angus, Hereford, crossbred cow, whatever. As long as one of those two is a purebred Speckle Park animal, it is eligible to come into the Speckle Park Commercial Register. There is also room there for animals that don't qualify for the purebred register. Like I mentioned, horned animals, red animals, they can fit within the commercial register. They cannot fit within the purebred register because no rules have changed. The commercial register is designed to be for commercial producers. So it's a once-off registration fee of $10 per animal. There are no female inventory fees on those animals. It's once off, whether it's male or female. But we do ask for some slightly extra information, PIC numbers, NLIS, date of birth. Breed content is extremely important. We obviously know the dam or the sire is a purebred animal. They're SKSK. But we need to know if it's a black baldy, we need to know that it's HPAA. We need to know what that breed content is. It is expected that raw data will be submitted. Otherwise, we are just creating a register for hobby cows, which is not what we're about. We're about creating abilities to gain access to data. Adversely to the purebred register, DNA is optional. It is not required. It's totally up to the member. And hopefully in the future, lower price option for genomic enhanced EBVs will be possible. That's something we continue to work on. But SPI does reserve the right, if we feel people are making a mockery of the commercial register, or we want to do some sense checks to provide some form of reliability to customers down the track, we do reserve the right to parent verify animals within the commercial register. One main point is no entire male is allowed on the commercial register. By no means is the commercial register a way of promoting crossbred bulls or anything like that. Any animal that is male that enters the crossbred register will be castrated and has a castration date and is then notified as a steer. So within the rules and regs, it is quite clear on that point, and SPI take that very seriously, that this is not a way of managing crossbred bulls in any way, shape or form. Couple of housekeeping points on the right there. The names and idents will follow with a C on the end of it to denote they live in the commercial register. And the animal's name will have obviously the stud prefix with the year letter and then the number and then the C following it with commercial in brackets. And Maddie's actually created an example of one within the database at the moment, a made-up animal. And you can see there right at the top of the page, registration status is commercial. It has the -C as its ident. It has a purebred registered Speckle Park sire with a made-up dam. It has the commercial part at the end of the name, and it has the birth weight included on that one. We've done a lot of testing backwards and forwards, multiple different ways to make sure all these points work and make sure all the rules and regs are covered. So we're fairly comfortable with those points there. And we'll roll on to another point here before we get into some questions. In creating all of this, we looked at a few things when Maddie came on board on how we can improve the offering in creating registrations, creating a commercial register. How do we go about doing this? So Maddie spent a lot of time creating a new spreadsheet for everybody to register animals on. It's available online to download now. There's a little video we're going to watch here in just a second. It will be uploaded on the website in the next couple of days for everyone to walk through at their own leisure. But it allows us to register purebred animals or commercial animals on the one form. Obviously, there are sense checks. So if you select the wrong register, Maddie will pick up on that and will question that. Just because you put purebred register and don't have the right details and doesn't meet the rules and regs, it's not going to get registered as a purebred or vice versa. And with that new registration form, we have gone away from the original registration form and then basically fill out the exact same information all over again on the DNA form. All of that information pulls from the one form now. You fill out the one form, put in the birth date once, put in the dam and the sire once, not twice. Send that through to the registration email address, and then Maddie will send you back the DNA form to print off and send with your samples. So we'll just watch this short video that will be online in the next couple of days.
First, I'll just take you through how we find the DNA and registrations form, and then I'll take you through the registration itself. So what we do is we come to the website and then we go to member forms and guides, and then we come down here to the DNA and registration forms, and then the registration and DNA form. To download that, we just click on it, and then what we do is open it from here. We open it from here, and it's recommended that you always download a new file just in case you are using an old file with an old format. So it opens up here to the first instructions page. This instructions page has all the information that you need for your registry to fill out your registration and DNA form on it. And then I've also done an example registration for us here. However, I'll take you through another example registration now. So the first things first, we need to fill in the member ID, the mobile and the email, and then we come to the nitty-gritty of the calf registrations. So I'll register a commercial calf first. So for the register, it's a C for a commercial. Then the dam, if it is on the database, you put in its information. If it's not on the database, you would leave it blank. Then we put in the size information, obviously the same. However, being a commercial, one needs to be registered already on the database. So the mating date is a normal date range. So we will just put the 31st to the 12th here. The mating code, is paddock, AI non-synchronized and hand rating. And then with the calf ID, you just put the year, letter and the drop number, the same as the name for a commercial. Then you would go through with the date of birth. And then the sex, and the sex is one of the things that you need to make sure it's either male or female, because when they're born, they're male or female, obviously you steer them after. So what we'll do here is we'll register a male and its colour, so then you go black, white, leopard, speckle. It's not a twin, so we just leave that blank. And then we just need to provide the NLS details for this. And then because it's a male and I'm registering it slightly afterwards, I've castrated it. So what we would do there is we would come through and castrate it with the castration date there. Because with our breed composition, because the father or the dam and sire are both on the database, that's just Speckle Park, cross Speckle Park. However, if it's not, you would come here and you would find whatever breed it is, and then you would type, so it's an 8-figure breed code. So what that means is that you go, it would be Speckle Park, cross Speckle Park as the dam, and then the sire is Speckle Park, cross Speckle Park. And then the calf fate, because it was born alive, we're leaving it empty. However, that's aborted and dead. Then the calving ease is obviously one is unassisted through to a caesarean. The management group, if you have a management group, I recommend talking to breed plan before you put something in there. The birth weight needs to be in whole numbers, so it'll be, say, 35. If it's 35 and a half, then you would go 36. This here's not an ET calf, so you would just leave it as nothing. And then we would come to the DNA section. The DNA section for commercial cows, or commercial animals, sorry, is optional. So if you wish to DNA test them, you can. So you would come through here and say we TSU'd it. So we'd go for a TSU, and then we'd supply the information on the TSU. And then you can choose, depending on which way you want to do it, you can either choose to bundle it, or you can SPCR it, which is, the SPCR is a low density genomics and a parent verification. And then you can also choose to, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bundle it, and then I'm going to test it for pesty. And then if you do have any other sires or dams that it could be, then you would list this as a yes, and then you would write that those sire or dam details in these two sheets just here. And then if you've got any comments, then you would leave your comments there.
And
first,
so before we jump onto questions, there's a couple of things I noticed in Maddie's presentation there to make sure everyone's aware of. On the current registration form, it is required you put the DNA case number in for every dam and sire. You'll notice in the new form that is not there. We know that information. We have that, so we don't need you to supply the same information that we already know. So that's not part of it. And even if you have optional dams and sires, additional dams and sires, to test against, you'll notice the DNA case number is listed there with optional next to it. And the other point is, across the top of the registration form, there's a series of either blue cells or non-coloured cells. The blue cells are ones that are required no matter whether it is commercial or purebred. The extra columns are only related to to the commercial register, i.e. the NIS number and so forth. So there are a couple of things there. So hopefully that's quite easy to follow and understand. But the second half of that video is registering a purebred calf. So we didn't think that was relevant for tonight, but that will be also posted on the website for people to download and work through as well, and or the tab of a sample registration to work through that. So I'll hand it back to Naomi to work out whether there's any questions to work through.
Thanks, Tim, for putting that together, and thanks, Maddie, for putting that video together. I've had a trial run with that sheet, and it's a much quicker process now, which is great. Just a reminder for you, if you have any questions, you can either pop them down in the chat bar, which you'll find down below, or if you want to hit the reactions and raise your hand, we'll unmute you so that you can ask a question. So if you've got those now, jump in. There's none currently in there, which means you've done a great job with your prozo there, Tim. But I'll just give everyone a minute in case there's anyone that pops up with a question.
And obviously there's a lot in what we've walked through there tonight. I mean, Naomi and I have worked on this in a roundabout for 5 years, so it's all quite second nature to us. So I assume there is something that might need working through and broader understanding. So fire away if anyone's got any questions.
We've got one there, Tim. So from Lindy, what are the options for non-tech savvy members?
I think working through the presentation that Maddie's put together, working through the sample registration form, I think it will all become quite second nature to everyone as they work through it and do it the first time especially. And I do see Alex's question there, and most definitely you can still use ILR online to register if that's the way you've been doing it. There's no changes in that. That still remains the same.
Thanks, Tim. I'm also just going to drop a link into the SPI website, which takes you to the commercial register where we have a bunch of information and frequently asked questions in there as well. So if you do have questions or something pops up after the webinar, you can jump on there and have a look or share with anyone else that might have missed tonight that would like some more information. There's no more questions coming through. Sorry, Tim.
There is plenty of outlines within that document too on understanding what animals are and are eligible and aren't eligible and so forth for the register. That's all there. And one point we did skip over to make sure everybody is aware, animals that you no longer consider stud quality animals that you potentially at this time of year might have created as inactive and lost to the world, those animals are able to be transferred to the commercial register. You can continue to keep them and their progeny as animals been recorded in breed plan if that was something that you wanted to talk about. If we haven't gone through that in great detail, if anyone wants more information on that, please contact Maddie or myself or a breed development member.
Thanks, Tim. We did have one more question. Is the NILS code on the tag acceptable, or does it require the electronic scan number in order to get proper feedback?
We can work with both, is the best answer. The internal 12-digit number or whatever it is more ideal, but we can work with both. It's easy enough to get a file to convert the two together.
Thanks, Tim. I'm not seeing any hands raised. If anyone has it, here's one more. What is the cost to register a commercial animal?
Yep, so it's a once-off fee of $10 per animal. There is no female inventory fee applicable to a commercial animal. It's a once-off fee, so a steer or a female is the same price. If that female's on there for 10 years and has 8 calves, it's only cost you $10. But every one of those calves that you then register will be $10 themselves. And
thanks, Tim.
We tried to make that as low as possible to be as commercially available to everybody and to manage our costs and be able to create the service. So we worked that as low as we could.
All right, I think we'll call that a wrap. We don't have any other questions popping through. As Tim said, if you do hop off today and something does come up that you're not sure of, please reach out to either Tim or a member of our committee, and we're happy to have a chat with you through it. This is a real positive for the breed, so we're hoping that we'll get good adoption from our members and commercial members, and hopefully achieve our objectives with this to get more purebred bulls out into the marketplace and get the data to sell more commercial animals. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Tim, and have a good evening. Thank you all.